Cool. Okay. Ready, Jay?
Yeah, ready.
All right, we're going to get started. So everyone, thank you so much for being with us today. Today's topic is on the power of podcasting and how a real estate agent can leverage it. I have a special guest with me. His name is Jay Wong, and I'm going to do a little short bio just so you get an idea of who we're with. So Jay is a serial entrepreneur, a real estate investor, and host of the Interchange Maker, consistently ranked among the top 100 podcasts in Canada, but it has a broad reach across borders. He serves high-level entrepreneurs by helping them put a voice behind their products and service through his boutique agency, as well as online accelerators. He got named as one of the top 40 millennial influencers to follow in 2018 and consistently creates content around the theme of legacy over currency and helps business owners monetize their top-rated podcasts. So, man, I'm so glad you're our guest today because that's what today's topic is on the power of podcasting. So Jay, thank you for being with us.
Yes, happy to be here, Dan.
Now, before we get started on this whole podcasting thing, can you just do a rundown of like what is a podcast for some people that may not know?
Yeah, sure. It's if you look back, podcasting is not a brand new technology. It's not something like AI or nanotechnology. It's actually been around since I think it was like 2006, 2007, and so it's been just over a decade in terms of people recording their own voice or creating a show or putting some type of recording online. Back in the day, people used to actually call it internet radio, right? And okay. I remember talking to podcasters that had started at that time before it was called podcasting, right? People just thought it was cool to be able to record your own voice, record conversations, and then they'd put it online, and then they just kind of watch what happened. It was before all the content marketers came into it. It was before people thought about it in a more strategic manner. And right. I would say if you look at the stats of the last 4 or 5 years, each year it's increased 20, 30%, and now it's quite difficult to find anybody, when you see anybody walking outside in a big city, it's difficult to imagine that they would not be listening to either a podcast or an audiobook. And everybody, we're in this time right now where we have so much access to literally the world's best content. Right?
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's absolutely amazing because whether you want to geek out about real estate, whether you want to geek out about Facebook ads, whether you want to geek out about being a digital nomad or farming or it doesn't matter, right? There's somebody out there that's creating content around it. And I think as business owners and as content creators, as entrepreneurs, I look at that from a very serious point of view. There's a stat out there that I remember, it was Edison Research. You guys can Google this if you're in front of a computer. They said people that listen to a podcast are typically about 10 to 15% more affluent than their counterpart that did not listen to a podcast, right?
Nice.
And I thought that was really interesting because I thought, those are the types of people that are going out and doing their own research. You know what I mean? Maybe they're not the complete do-it-yourself type of person, but they want to be in the know, And I think as business owners, that's really the opportunity of, hey, there's all this content out there, but can I leverage the medium of podcasts, put my voice behind my own beliefs, my own stories, my values? Dan, I'm sure you have some great frameworks about how people can think about real estate or investing, right? And could you be that real estate voice in your customer's head, right? Could you be with them in the car? Could you be with them in the gym? Can you be with them while they're waiting for their bus, right? I remember one time I got on a call with someone, this was a couple of years ago, and the guy said, "Oh my God, this is Jay." And I had no idea who he was, but he clearly knew who I was. And he said, "No, you don't understand. You've done gardening with me." And I was like, this was a bit of a sales call. I was like, I don't know if you got the right guy. Right? He's like, no, you've been to the gym with me. And I was like, oh, you certainly don't have the right guy. And they were like, no, you've been in the car with me when it was just me and you. And I got to learn from some of the guests that you brought on. I got to learn from you. And I know that you're, I was traveling at that time. So he's like, I know you're in that city right now. And I'm like, oh my God, this is quite revealing, But he knew so much about my brand and who I was, and he already knew, like he was already sold. It was more of like a formality to hop on and get a chance to connect. So I think the power of podcasting is super awesome, and it's simply a medium for you to put your voice and for you to record it and for you to share that with the world. And now with the technology that we have, it's easier and better than ever.
Oh, so much easier. And anybody who's listening, you might hear the word podcast and automatically assume it's iPhone only. That's not the
No.
case. If you have an Android device, you can go to the Google Play Store and type in the word podcast. There's going to be a whole bunch of apps that come up. Go for download 2 or 3 of them that have the highest ratings and see which one fits you the best. But if you want to get your toes wet and just like play with the podcasting, experience what other people are doing. So if you go for me, I have an iPhone, so I'll just open up the podcast app.
Yeah.
But then when I go there, you can search anything you want. So think of the podcast app as like a Google search. So you could, if you're a real estate agent, type in the word real estate open house and hit search. And there are people podcasting and talking about how to run a killer open house, Or you could say internet buyer conversion scripts. Like you can do whatever you want. Yeah. Type it into Google. Like for me, I'm doing this 3-year road trip where I move to a new city every month.
Sure.
And so I was obsessed with digital nomads and how to work remotely. And I learned all the tools and systems and the ways that I could monetize myself. Like I did this way before I hit the road. I was literally obsessed with it. Some people are like, they want to get into shape. So for exercise, for example, like it doesn't have to be just work related either. You can just literally type in how to quit smoking. And there's people there's probably 100 podcasts talking about quitting smoking. And the cool thing is on your podcast is that you can download them on your phone and then listen to them when you're offline. So when I go flying and I have to do a flight, I'll download like 10 or 15 podcasts. Because I don't like them all, and I don't know which ones I like and which ones I don't like. So I'll download 15 of them. That way I don't need the internet wherever I'm at. And you can literally hit the ground running and be brainwashed and inundated with that topic. So like how to run a podcast. If you type that on podcast, there's people talking about it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
In fact, so can you explain the Interchange Maker just so people understand what that is?
I mean, for me, I imagine for most of your audience that they're already established kind of business owner. Maybe some of them are just starting out, right? Maybe some of them are a little more seasoned, but for me, when I started the podcast, I was just starting out, and I think we were chatting a little, I don't know if we were on record or off record, but we're putting it on record now, which, for me at that time, I wanted to, one, be able to reach out to certain mentors and certain people that their work was really inspiring to me. But I wanted to not just reach out in that way of like, hey, let me buy you lunch or let me like pick your brain, right? Because like who really needs anybody else to send them that message, right? Yeah. And I thought it would be really great if I actually created a platform to actually share their message for them, And that was always the frame of mind that I kind of came with, like, hey, how can I deliver value for you? And once again, I was just starting out and I didn't have any audience. I didn't know how to upload anything. I didn't know how to tell a story online or how to even be able to do this, like it would have probably freaked me out. And so that's why I started the podcast, the Interchange Maker, because it was this crazy topic of, people choosing legacy over currency. And I didn't know how to answer that, And the beauty of it was that I didn't need to be the expert. I brought in other great experts, and now like I look at the lineup of individuals that I've gotten a chance to collaborate with and interview and build relationships with, and some of them have become, closer friends, right? Some of them we just, promote their book or their programs or what have you. But these are like New York bestsellers. These are millionaires. We've had the fortunate chance of interacting with a few billionaires as well. And I just cannot imagine where I would be without some of their little insights. You know what I mean? And so for me, I always started that podcast from that frame of mind of, hey, how can I give value first to the marketplace and then figure out my own stuff as I was going along. And as I got along, it wasn't my intention when I started the podcast, like, hey, I'm going to start like teaching this stuff or teach online marketing or branding and what have you. But as you build up your audience, you start realizing what it is that they're asking you for, right? And
Right.
it's up to you to be able to say, hey, you know what, I can teach you that. I have a framework for that. Or let me just show you what I did. And if you found that valuable, you know, maybe I can automate this, right? So that's how I got started with the podcast. And, you know, I started getting invited to speak because people kept asking me like, hey, you kind of came out of nowhere. You had no email list, no previous brand. Like, how did you do this, right? Like, how did you even reach out to these people? And I just show them. I would just say, hey, these are like the exact email templates. This is exactly what I'd write, exactly what I'd say. And, you know, it kind of took off from there.
So you totally hit on something where you don't have to be the expert, and
Yeah,
so by you interviewing other people, that helps you create the content is because they're creating the content for you. Like today's episode with me and you, I had like very little prep time, right? I
right,
knew
right.
that primarily it's going to be you running this show. I just have to
Sure.
facilitate the conversation. So it made my job a lot easier, and now I've got some good content. So how do you think a real estate agent could use podcasting? And I'll give my little segue first is if I was a real estate agent, I would take a look at all the local businesses in and around
Mhm.
my farm area that I really focus on business, and I would go do mini interviews of those brokerages, and the interview would be based on the 5 Ws, the who, what, where, when, why, how. So I
Mhm.
would do, and I could do it in person with my phone, just between the two of us and a lavalier mic, and that could
Yeah.
be the podcast. Now they have a video that they can share with their database, so you can leverage other people's databases, and just by doing like one interview a week or 2 interviews a month or whatever is a comfortable number for the agent, just
Yeah.
talking to local business owners in your local farm area.
Yeah.
So how do you think real estate agents could use podcasting?
So, you know, I was at a dinner last night, and it was one of these dinners where everybody's like kind of like a business owner, but we didn't really know each other beforehand, and we everybody just kind of knew the hosts, right? So it was like 8-person dinner, and we were talking about content marketing and podcasting.
Yeah.
And one thing that I said at that table was that, you know, there's about 3 different types of podcasts. One that you suggested right there, and one that I pretty much started with, which was interview the, you know, your peers, you know, celebrities in your industry, people that you know that's in your market, right? And be able to kind of ride their coattails and build up the platform that way. Um,
Oh, I'm going to interrupt. And
okay.
vendors. So the real estate agents could interview their vendor, like their mortgage broker, to talk about rate changes. So say the industry makes a new rate change. You can
Yeah.
interview your mortgage broker on updates and let them be the professional, your lawyer, your home stager. Okay,
Yeah.
go on. I just want to give people that thought.
So look, like if we can cut to the chase, I mean, the whole purpose of a podcast is not just so you can record to hear your own voice, right? It is, in my belief, the best use of a podcast is to nurture the relationships with people that haven't done business with you, but they want to do business with you. They want to maybe buy something, right? I think I learned this from Dean Jackson, who came from the
Mm,
real estate world. I don't know
yeah,
if anybody here knows Dean
yeah.
Jackson or not, but he has this, he tells a story about this market research company, and you know, about, you know, the percentages of people that when, you know, X amount, when they inquire about something, typically 15% of people are ready to buy something within that 90-day period, right? But alternatively, 85% of people, everybody else that doesn't buy something within that 90-day period, they will make a purchase decision, whether it's with you or with someone else, with what they inquired about within 2 years, within 24 months, right?
That's true with
And
internet leads.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I always found that fascinating, because I think most marketers and most business owners, they're always asking like, what's the ROI? You know what I mean? Like like we spent X amount in ads this month, right? And what's the return on it, right? Which is not a bad question. Of course, like you want to know your numbers, and you want to know that. But I just think that if you look a little more medium to long term, right? And your approach, instead of asking for that 15% always right off the bat, and you're looking to nurture and build the trusts, and nurture that know, love, and trust factor, I think it makes a world of difference, because at the end of the day, it's 5 or 6 times more profitable, right, than focusing on that first 15%. So I think the first thing, if I could, you know, if anybody wants to just take something and leave this interview and that's it, I think you have to use your content, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube show or a blog, as a nurturing tool first, right? And placing that to nurture your email list, your even people that bought from you, right? People in your Facebook group, and continuing to be not just top of mind, but to continue give value so that when you have something to promote, when you have an event coming up, when you're doing a product launch, right? It's not like you're just going and you're asking this type of cold audience. You've already warmed them up and they know what you're all about, right? So I think that's like one of the biggest mindset shifts that tons of my clients have to kind of like work around, but myself as well, because I think a lot of times we think of content, we go, oh, we're going to put out content and then people are going to respond to it, and you know, like they're going to hop on and we're going to make them an offer and we're going to take it from there. But I think it's a lot smarter to say, hey, we're going to do all that, but we're going to use the podcast, we're going to leverage all the content to really nurture most people that don't buy from us on the first interaction so that we can warm them up for the next one.
Yeah, nobody's going to create a local real estate podcast, publish their first show, and then get a buyer lead from it. The real value is the relationship between you and whoever you're interviewing, if that's your choice is to interview people. Yeah. So one, that interview, it's like a 1-hour conversation. It's way deeper than a cold call. Like you're going way deeper with those people. Two, the fact that you can repurpose the content. So I think it's almost like a pyramid. And if you started at the top and did a video-based podcast, now you have video and audio. So now you could use an audio version podcast so people can just listen without watching. But now because you have the video, guess what? YouTube, Facebook. Yeah. And now because you have the video, that can be transcribed, and now you have a blog. You know what I mean? Like it starts with that up at the top, you do that video-based podcast, and now you've got a written blog, you've got YouTube and Facebook videos. You can use those on landing pages as like lead magnets, for example. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. There's so many things, right? There's so many things you can do with content, and I would say I totally agree. Like, you know, video and audio would be in a perfect world, right? But if some people they don't want to well, I don't know. For real estate agents, I feel like video's almost a necessity, right? Like you kind of have to do video regardless of how you feel about video, right?
Dude, video was the hot thing five years ago. Yeah. And every year they're like, this is the year of video. It's like, we're 5 years into video being the it thing. So you got to get on this bandwagon.
Look, I always say we're definitely living in the golden era of video, but I promise you we're moving into the golden era of audio, man. Like it's audio is so much easier for so many people for a variety of reasons, but mostly it's a time thing, right? Like, let's say, for example, and I'll just give another example of what they could do with a podcast, because for the more established business owner, let's say you've been doing it for a few years. Let's say you know your market hyper well, which I imagine, you know, for the more established business owner, you probably do, right? You don't even have to do interviews. Just share with me, as if I was a prospective client, an insight, an idea, a takeaway, right? You have 1,000,001 stories that happen to you during the day. You know, oh, we went to do a showing, this thing happened. It reminded me that, you know, that the ABC, right? Teach me the way that you think. Teach me why you're the show me you're the expert. Don't tell me you're a real estate agent. Everybody's a real estate agent, right? Or everybody's does something, right? Show me your expertise. Show me how to think like an investor. Because once you change my perspective, once you give me a few insights, now I feel like I'm better, right? And there's that type of gratitude of like, wow, this person, you know what? Like they're the expert in my mind. You know what I mean? I'm going to listen to what they say. Right? So that's how you start dominating that space in their minds.
Totally. If agents want to take that approach where they're not interviewing somebody else and they're the one who's like the source of the content, what they could do is pick like 1 or 2 books that are based on the consumer and buying a home, selling a home, or investing in property. And then what you could do is each chapter could be one of your podcasts where you're one, promoting the book, so they're going to love it, but 2, you're sharing your authority and your spin on it, and you're also condensing them having to read or listen to an 8-hour book, and you're shortening it for the people. And I would you could pick like 5 books and you'd have that. There's your podcast for the rest of the year. It's just one chapter every other week.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this is what I would love your audience to like leave here with, outside of like, okay, use the podcast as a nurturing tool. Like that's really great. You have to, everything about brand, right? And especially if you're a realtor, like, and you guys probably know this, which is like your brand. And when you walk into a room, your brand walks into the room before you do. You know what I mean? The way you're sitting, the way that you're communicating, before everybody, like if the person, your client even meets you, there's a certain brand, there's a certain allure to that person, right? I think every brand has this ongoing conversation. You know, if you follow any of my content, you know what are some of my ongoing conversations. You know what are some of the common sayings, and you know what are some of my common beliefs around lifestyle design, around business, around sharing your message. And so every time you create content, you share that with an audience, I think you need to be pushing that ongoing conversation. You know, if you're a big believer that people should be buying commercial real estate versus single family homes, then that's the ongoing conversation. You should be telling me why it's silly for me to buy a single family home versus a commercial real estate, or buying a REIT or whatever, right? Like, you know, change in whatever your niche is.
It should be
that's
niche.
what you got to be pushing forward, right? Because then people are listening and they're like, you know what? The more they listen, the more they buy in to the way you're thinking, right? And people love doing business with people they trust, with people that they believe in, but with people that also resonate with how they think.
So agents listening, do what you think is your best fit. But don't just be like, oh, Danny said we should be talking about real estate, so I want to talk about real estate. I mean, you could talk about local community as well. If that creates variety, because then you're not a boring drone. You could like interview the mayor who just got elected. You know what I mean? Like, so many community things happening that it's just like free, fresh content that you could be leveraging. So don't just think that you have to do it based on like buying a home, selling a home, or investing in real estate, because you could run out of content if you're not passionate about it, right?
It's true. Now, it's true. Yeah, I would create content around your own life, like around your own stories, your own beliefs, your own perspectives. You know what I mean? Around timelines and different insights. I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be around like business. You know what I mean? So like, these are my 4 steps to, you know, buying your first property type stuff. It could be around what are your core beliefs as a entrepreneur, as a creator, and I think that humanizes the brand even more.
What tools? Okay, before we get complicated, because I know people are like, oh, I need all this gear. Well, really, you just need a phone, right?
Yeah, I'm recording this, or I'm on the phone right now.
Yeah,
because mostly because the internet's out at the where we're staying, and so like we're like, okay, 3G, phone, headphones. You're like the camera on your phone is better than the camera on I guarantee you it's better than the camera on every one of your laptops, almost across the board, right? Even if you do have a great camera on your laptop, I don't even use that camera. I use a webcam, right? So anyways, sorry, back to your question.
No, yeah. So we're going to talk, I want to hear, what tools do you suggest if people want to elevate their game? But anybody who's getting started, you've already got it in your pocket and you don't have to pay any more money. However, I think the keys to at least video-based would be good lighting, good mic,
yes,
that sort of thing. So what are off the top the tools that you think an agent should look into?
So so for video, are we talking video or like
the whole umbrella?
I mean, you know, it's funny, like I travel quite a bit, like, well, you know, a few times a year, but I travel and I bring this mic with me everywhere I go. It's the ATR 2100, and it comes with like a little bit of a stand, so you could, you know, stand it. This is like the best. I think it's like, you know, for people that are in the US, it's like $70, right? For Canada, it's you know, you got to do the conversion on that. So I use that mic every time. If I don't have that mic, I'll use either the Rode Lav mic if I'm filming like a quick video or a solo video, or I'll use the Apple headphones, which I found that had the best type of like headphone, like speaker microphone.
They sound so good.
Yeah, I think they sound great. I mean, they're, you know, it's getting, I mean, you can get the AirPods, right? Like the, you know, AirPods is like $200 or something like that. I think something like this is absolutely fine. I think lighting,
Before you move on to lighting and video and stuff,
yeah,
so for the audio, I'm using, this is a Plantronics headset, and
yeah,
it's Bluetooth, so it works to my phone, but it also has USB, so it works to my computer. And what I
yeah,
like about it is I can turn my head, and the audio still sounds exactly the same because it follows
that's
with me.
cool. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And it's universal. I can put it in my pocket. It's so, I just look like a big dummy. I don't like, I don't like wearing it. I look like a
Sure.
dummy. But anyways, the flexibility of I can do it from my computer, I can do it from my phone, it's in my
Yeah.
pocket, it's wireless. I love it. Now, there is a lav mic that I suggest to people. It's called iRig, like the letter I,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good one.
R-I-G.
Yeah.
iRig lav mic, and there's a 2-pack. There's 2 in 1 pack. And what's cool about that is I can have a lavalier mic, and
Mm.
your co-host or partner can have one, and they all feed into one phone. So you don't have any
Mm.
audio editing. There's no
Yeah.
syncing. There's nothing. It's just, so that's a really cool one.
That is
Okay,
a really cool one.
you were going to go on to lighting.
Yeah, honestly, if you're going to build like an at-home studio or you're going to be consistent like with where you're filming, I think there's no better than getting like a ring light. I know they're like maybe like 150 or what have you.
I want to show
Like,
one. Yeah, keep talking. I got one here.
yeah, yeah, yeah. A good ring light can make or break like video, right? If you don't have a ring light, you don't want to spend the money on the ring light. I totally get it. Try to sit in front of a window. But here's the catch with that, right? Natural light is the best. However, what if it's like super dark outside? What if it's night, right? Or
Yeah.
what if it's like super gloomy or raining, right? So now you're not running on your schedule. You know what I mean? You're running on something you can't really control. So that's the one thing. I like having a ring light that we travel with. And you so Danny even has like a little tiny one, and that's perfect in terms of lighting.
What's cool about this is I have an external webcam, so my camera's
Yeah.
there, but my computer is actually down here. And
Okay.
so I can actually thread mount my webcam onto here, mount this onto the tripod. It uses, the one I like is it has these different color plates, because if you use
Yeah,
just
yeah,
the white, it is like so unnatural. So you can use this filter and it looks
yeah,
way
yeah, yeah.
more natural. So this is the ring light that I use. I'm not actually using it right now. I have another light over there, and it's got 2 dimmers, one for the bright white and then one for the yellow.
Mm.
I'm telling that you almost need more light than you think. If it's uncomfortable, then you have the right amount of light.
Yeah. I wish I could turn this around, but my phone's being charged right now, and it's probably not that good of an idea. But there's 2 box lights that I'm looking at, like one on each side right now. In terms where I was filming a video before this, not on this phone, on a different camera right behind here. But
Oh,
yeah,
I got it. So anybody listening who's like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to take this video thing serious. I want more lighting. Both Canada and the U.S., you can Google search Cowboy Studio. They're in Mississauga, but they ship worldwide.
yes,
And
we have a few lights from them actually.
I bought a green screen kit, so it had a
Mm.
green screen, white screen, and black screen with the
Yeah,
frame, a case, and then 3 lights. And I don't quote me on the price, but I think it was like $280 or something like that.
yeah,
And I had bought before that. I bought just the green screen part for like $500, and I'm like, oh my god, this is almost half the price, and I get 3 extra lights.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
cheap.
That's
Cool.
crazy.
Okay, so that's
Um,
good for lighting.
Yeah, I mean that honestly, that's pretty much it. I mean, outside of the recording software, so I actually run everything where you can use Zoom, right? Like I'm sure
Yep.
you've done like Zoom recordings. That seems to be the easiest one. A lot of my students use Zoom. I personally like using Skype and recording on Skype. I just like the video and how it looks better. It's more of a preference thing.
Oh,
But
cool. Yeah.
it doesn't make that big of a difference. And then, yeah, if you are recording using your computer, I just recommend using like a little webcam. I'll actually show you one because I have one here. This is well timed. So I just like use this one, which is the one that everybody seems to have anyways. So
Yeah.
if you
I
guys
have this.
want
I
an
have that one, but
extensive
it's silver.
list, You guys can go on my website. It's like a hidden page, but you guys will, I'll share it with you guys, which is just my website, theinterchangemaker.com/resources with an S. And so I pretty much list out my entire, I would say I have about probably like 80% on that list.
Shihab, can you make a note of that, and then we'll include it in the notes, please?
Yeah, so it's interchangemake.com/resources.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on. Now, there's a technical aspect that a lot of people are going to get hung up on, and that's like after they record and it's on their computer, how do they get it to the podcast? So that's like the hosting and the feed. Can you kind of touch on that without overwhelming them?
Yeah. So it's like, okay, so in a perfect world, this is what we do of our own clients, because we found that to be the biggest hurdle for people.
Yeah.
Because everybody listening to this or watching this, they're like, okay, I'm sold. I'm going to go create content right now. Like right after this, like, damn, like I'm good. They create like 10 videos. And then what happens? It's like, what do I do now? Right?
So for those agents that get stuck at that hurdle, take those videos and take that content and share it Facebook and YouTube first. So you can work, all the content you make can be just done, like Andrew Foliato. He doesn't even have a podcast yet. He's doing all these interviews like he did you. I think he did me. And then he channels them through Facebook. So it was Facebook first, and then he's going to release a podcast based on all those interviews. So
yeah. So in a perfect world, well, let's just explain from like a high level without overwhelming anybody, which is you need a media host, all right? And a media host just simply means a dedicated library where you're just going to upload your episode, right? And when you're done uploading your episode, you are going to, when you're ready to kind of have your podcast live, they're going to give you just a link. It's just a link. It's called an RSS feed. And you're going to copy and paste that link, and you're going to submit that to iTunes. And if you use, we work with, we're really good friends with the owners at Libsyn. So that's the media host I use. And on Libsyn, you could do that same process with Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio. You can do that with SoundCloud. So like what you want to do is you want to start connecting your media host to all these outside channels, right? And every time you upload a new episode, you just upload it once and it goes everywhere. So that's kind of the idea.
So a lot of people don't realize this is like there's a whole world out there that is engaging in these platforms you just mentioned, and a lot of the people listening have never even heard of that. So there's like an untapped audience, and at the press of a button, you can get it distributed for free. Well, no, you pay.
Well, yeah. I mean, full transparency, I pay like $20, $30 a month for Libsyn, but come on, that's a pretty inexpensive cost of doing business, but you're getting your content in front of people that are maybe even already interested in what you have to say. They just don't know who you are.
You can do podcasting for free, by the way. So for those of you that want to, however, I would suggest all podcasters use a service like Libsyn for a reason.
Yeah. And on that resource page, I think there's a code on there. So typically it's only for people that kind of go through our online course. Like we just kind of created that resource for them. But I'm pretty sure if people want to use it, you can. There's a code that gives you up to, I think, like 2 months for free. It's the same code I used actually when I first got rolling. So that way you can kind of get used to it, see it, see if it's for you, and then see how much space you're going to need. Most of you will not need anything more than like $15, $20 a month.
Yeah, the 80-20 rule applies to everything. So 80% of the people listening aren't going to do anything. 20% probably will, so it's not going to get abused. So that's cool. Thank you for offering that.
Yeah.
What would you say is a 90-day plan? If you could break it down and say, okay, if you're starting from 0 to hero, this is what the next 90 days kind of looks like. Do you have like a basic roadmap?
Yeah. So look, I think the most important thing is figuring out what your ongoing conversation is with your brand, with what you stand for, and also just figuring out why, like, what's the theme of your show? You know what I mean? You don't have to figure out the name of the show. You don't have to figure out your colors. You don't have to figure out all that stuff. Just figure out those things, the theme of the show, what's the ongoing conversation, and then I would start figuring out what is like the type of content you're comfortable with, right? Is it interviews? Is it solo content, right? Do you do a lot of talks, that you can like repurpose some of the audio from the talks, right? Do you do a lot of things like this where you can take certain clips of this and, promote out? So I think you have to come up with at least just two type of like asset, kind of like content assets that you could be comfortable creating. And I would start getting into the practice of creating, like actually creating those. And I would spend about the first 45 days just doing that, because I think that's the biggest hurdle.
A good way for agents to practice is with their immediate vendor list. So their best friend mortgage broker, their best friend lawyer, and just kind of like hack at it like that. If it doesn't work, then nobody has to see it, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like, so many of my clients are like, well, like there's so many things, there's so many moving parts. It's like, sure, but like, what's going to give you the most clarity? If you just do an interview, if you just do one piece of content, because when you do that piece of content or when you do that interview, you're going to learn a lot of things from yourself. You're going to figure out, do I even like discussing these things? You know what I mean? Yeah. Do I want to get that geeky? Like, I might be a mortgage broker, but do I want to talk about mortgage numbers on a podcast? I don't know, right? Like, so, you have to, you can't figure it out by not doing, right? A lot of people, they're kind of like, hey, once I get clarity, then I'm going to take action, right? And I tell a lot of my clients, it's like, look, I promise you, if you switch that around, it's gonna make your life a lot easier. If you just take action, and the more action you take, the more clarity you're gonna get, because you're
always correcting yourself anyways. Like, nobody ever has the real vision. Me, I have almost I'm like 4 or 5 videos away from 500 videos on YouTube.
Congrats.
And thank you. And I haven't done anything with those videos as far as having somebody transcribe it and then write out a blog. So I, at the press of a button, could set up somebody where they're writing blog after blog after blog after blog, just strictly based off of my videos. But I didn't stress about that the first couple of years. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to do everything that we talk about, and you don't have to do everything that you think you have to do. All you have to do is get started. And if it's just simply a voice recording that you share on, like, you can start with Facebook Live and pretend, and that could be your trial of doing podcasting.
So we did this. I remember when Andrew, Dan and I met kind of through a mutual friend, Andrew, and Andrew was interviewing me at that time, and at that time we were doing a podcast challenge. I don't know if you remember. I was talking a little bit about it, but one of the challenges, it was like one of these like 5-day, 7-day challenges around podcasting. But one of the, I think on day 2 or 3, we switched it up. I was like, you know what? Like, I want to get them actually recording, because like that's gonna like immediately let them know kind of where they're at with it, right? And it was amazing, like the comments and the feedback. So the way challenges work is like I'd put a challenge out in the morning, and then people have 24 hours to complete it. And if they don't complete it or they don't comment on the thread, they get kicked out of the group, right? So that's kind of cool. Yeah, I know. So we get tons of engagements, all right? Because people are like, "Oh my God, this is like for real, right?" But it's like it's like a challenge, right? And people don't, they get competitive with it. But the comments of people are like, I recorded, we just said record 1 minute. I gave them a very basic framework to follow, 1 minute, right? Yeah. And some people like found themselves recording 2 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, right? Some people were like, I was scared out of my mind. I was so nervous. My heart was bleeding. I thought it was stupid. The recording was like, they didn't share the recording, but they were like, I don't know why I'm doing this exercise. This is stupid. Like I'm not. But even doing that got them in the mood of creating content, of practicing, of sharing their message. So many of you are further along than probably most of the people that were doing the challenge, but that idea of taking action, of creating content, that's going to all of a sudden give you all the ideas of saying like, hey, you know what, I'm going to start doing this out, putting this out there, and I can make a difference for my current audience.
I got a good tip for your students and anybody who's listening. My camera's over here on a tripod. So underneath the tripod, I get a piece of paper and I just kind of bullet point the questions or the flow of the conversation. I don't write out the script. It's not scripted. It's a bullet point. And it's underneath the camera. And I normally have a glass of water. And I'll use this cactus, so pretend this is water. It's pretty dry. Anyways, so whenever I feel like the conversation is going off track, I'll grab the water and my eyes will look down at the piece of paper, and then I put, like, I'm not even thirsty. I'm just wanting to get back on track.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
any of your audience, they could pre-write out the who, what, where, when, why, how, the 5 Ws,
Mm,
and it's so simple, and it keeps you on track. That way you're not umming and ahhing and going all over the place.
yeah. Love it. Love it. Love it. I'll take it as a compliment if there's no glass of water in front of you then.
Yep. No.
for
Yeah.
this conversation. Yeah.
Right. Well, for you, I did it all on my iPad.
Okay.
It was a little unique for what we were up to. But normally, if I was doing a podcast interview, it would pretty much be the same style interview over and over. It would just be a different guest.
Right.
Okay. Do you have any examples of students that went from like zero to hero, regardless of industry? Just like
Yeah. I mean, tons come to mind. There was this guy that I just saw a couple days ago. He took one of our online accelerator programs. Really cool thing. His name's Tuan Nguyen. One of these guys, huge personal brand, spoke on TEDx like 3 or 4 times, and he made his money in he runs a consultancy for dental firms. So he does marketing consulting for large dental firms, and
okay.
it's great. It's very profitable. Great house, multiple kids, but that wasn't his passion. And what he did is he took our online accelerator and he started a podcast called the Awesome Biz Dad Podcast. Awesome Biz Dad Podcast. And it was around how to be a great father as well as being a great entrepreneur, right?
Ooh.
And he just shared. Like, it's not even like his audience was very big because he wasn't creating any content. He just kept sharing. He would just, every interview, he'd just like, hey, Dan, let's take a photo together, right? So you just take that photo and just share it. Like, hey, you know what? We had a great interview of Dan. Dan shared this one tip with me. That was really cool. Check out this episode over here, right?
Oh,
so he just kept doing that. And
are you still in touch with them?
Yeah. I literally just saw he just ran a workshop here in Toronto. Yeah.
When we hang up, call him or send him a voice message with this tip. So if anybody listening has a child, what you do is you register an email for them, and then you, your wife, and your immediate family, everybody uses that email for when they take photos, videos, inspirational stuff, and you just forward stuff to that email. Then when that child turns 16, you give them the email, but you don't tell them their whole life until they turn 16. You give them access to that email, and it's a whole timeline of them growing up.
Wow, that's some some email ninja stuff, man. So anyways, like with him, it was absolutely amazing because he started building up this audience around all these dads, all these guys that were successful, that had great businesses, but they struggled in different areas of their life, whether it was fatherhood or in the relationships or intimacy or what have you. And he sent me a message just like a few weeks ago. He just launched a online membership, and they had over 2,000 applicants.
What? Wow.
I was like, what? That was insane, And so he's just doing his first round like now, and they're starting in January. But it's this hyper connected group of just business dads, And obviously he came in with a lot of like his own networks and what have you, but like literally no email lists, no personal brand, like none of the social media vanity stuff. And now he's able to create like a different revenue source, you know what I mean, from his original business. And it all just started with him sharing his content.
And he didn't plan that. He didn't start with the end goal and game of like, I want to do all this because at the end of it, I want to create a membership website. It just organically happened. You're like, what? And also a cool tip is if you want to like fix something in your life, become a student of the game and teach it. So like for him, he's really sharing with people how to be engaged and intentional with your child and like living in the moment, that sort of thing. So because he's doing this podcast, he's like way higher than other people in that world of his life.
And one thing I'll point out about his case, and I think people that are quite successful building their brand and building their shows, is that there's a selfish factor in it, meaning that he would do it for free. Meaning like he would absolutely just love geeking out with other dads around how to be a better dad. Do you know what I mean? And he would love to just have, I think if you connect it to a business, I think it makes even better sense. But he would just at the base, at the foundation, love those conversations because he needs them, right? Mm-hmm. So like it serves a kind of like a selfish need, but if he needs them, then there's certainly other people that might need them as well.
I love it, dude. This is so cool. So there's a comment, somebody said, thank you, John. I shouldn't say somebody. John says that Anchor.fm is a free podcasting host with unlimited storage. So thank you for that feedback. Good tip. Now, should anybody, and hopefully they do, want to reach out to you and contact you just to go deeper with ways that you can help them, what's the best way for a person to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, so, we mentioned my podcast. If you guys want to experience listening to podcasts or check out different podcasts, the Interchange Maker podcast is kind of where it's at. If you guys want to dive deep, I know we talked a lot about podcasting, but if you kind of want kind of more of like a business plan around how to actually take a podcast and leverage it for your business, we do have an on-demand training that we call the 6-Figure Podcast Master Plan. And that's at www.theinterchangemaker.com/master plan.
And it would cross-relate to any industry. So
it cross-relates to, whether you're a coach, consultant, realtor, MLM, nutrition, lawyer, like it's all about you have to understand how to be able to just take a podcast and be able to kind of take what you do and merge that together. Because sometimes it is as simple as like, hey, I want to interview, the movers and shakers in my industry. That could work, right? But I think a lot of times in realtors, like you need to be the expert. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if you're able to raise your authority, your celebrity, that's only going to be able to help you in your business.
It's funny you say MLM. I'm actually taking my content right now and repurposing it. Yeah. MLM stands for multi-level marketing or direct selling.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually going to branch off and start another coaching division, just helping people in the MLM world, because they're left on their own. They get signed up and they got nobody helping them.
Right. We had a client that works with our agency, and she's in the MLM space. She's crushing it, absolutely crushing it. She was showing me some of their numbers. I was like, oh my God. And so they had, it was absolutely mind blowing for her to show me some of the stuff, but she was doing nothing in content marketing, because a lot of times if they're on their team and what have you, they're kind of doing all those as part of it's almost like they have this whole internal thing. So her adding this podcast gave her this kind of this outside brand, and MLM just happened to be one modality, one little, revenue stream for her because she was able to create this higher brand.
Well, that also, she can repurpose that for when she's recruiting or getting people into her business or downline or whatever she calls it. That podcast creates that celebrity status where she could share that.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, man, thank you so much. I'm so glad this worked out today with your internet, my internet. Also, we both
I know. But, I'm glad it worked. I hope people got some great value out of it. I'd love if you did get any great value out of it, feel free to reach out to me on social or with Dan on social and let me know if you have any questions or any feedback. If you dig the haircut, just joking.
I love it. Yeah, I love all of it, man. Cool. So when I'm back in Toronto, we'll connect for sure. So
100%.
I'm coming back. I'll be back in January. So everybody who's on the call right now, thank you for being with us. I want to end this recording. We're going to get it recorded, publish it on Monday evening, and then we'll announce the next date, time, and session. We're probably going to take some time off for the holidays because a lot of you just aren't going to show up. So I respect that.
Calling some of you out here.
Yeah, so I'm going to kick off the new year with some strong content. Okay? Thanks, everyone. Bye. Hey, if you want to close more real estate transactions, get more buyer leads, and get more seller leads, click this button right here. It'll take you to our real estate group coaching page. Also, if you like this video and want more, you can subscribe by pressing this, or you can check out some of my past videos here. Enjoy!